Well, apparently Tulsi Gabbard has over 100 personnel working on around the clock to prepare the RFK files for release. We also have Chris, that will be commenting on that, will be Mark Groubert. I'll tell you about him in a second. And then Chris Moritz, he's The Unraveling of California is a case study in the perils of unchecked oligarchy. We're going to talk to him after we talk to Mark. Mark is a writer, editor, producer, publisher, screenwriter. He has written on LA Weekly, edited for National Lampoon magazine, produced for HBO, MTV, screenwriter, journalist, really, as I think of him. He hosts America's Untold Story on YouTube. And Chris has a lengthy pedigree, including an MPH from University of Cambridge, JD from NYU. We will talk to both these gentlemen right after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
If you're a man or a woman over 40, listen closely. Nitric oxide is considered to be an important molecule for supporting healthy vasculature, healthy blood pressure. Now, Heart Factors Plus is made with a powerful formula that's packed with L-arginine, a key amino acid that has been shown to naturally enhance nitric oxide. It enhances the physiology and could play a key role in supporting healthy blood flow, optimal circulation, and even sexual performance. Heart Factors Plus includes a powerful antioxidant blend to support nitric oxide as well. And right now, take advantage of this amazing introductory sale for Heart Factors Plus. Go to heartfactorsplus.com/Drew and get a free bottle with your order today. Limited quantity are available, so act fast. I want you to go to heartfactorsplus.com/Drew. One more time, that is heartfactorsplus.com/DREW. And we're going to bring our friend Mark Groubert here to talk first about the RFK files. But the other thing I always use Mark for is to tell me, where are we sort of historico-politically, socially? Mark is my crystal brain. Well, I have a few crystal brains in my life, and Mark is one of them to help me understand where I am and where we're going. So I'll just let you start there.
Well, I think, to sum it up, I think we're looking at civil war around the world. The repression and the tactics of repression that are going on in Western Europe, in Ireland and UK and Scotland, that is a powder keg that just needs a light. That's going to blow. You're going to see something here happen the same way. This situation is...
Slow down, slow up. You're delivering bad news, as you often do.
I'm sorry. Is this the Dr. Drew show?
But let me understand what the powder keg is. Are you saying people are going to react to the repression?
Yeah, it's basically...
Or they're going to come down on people violently because they fight off the repression? I mean, how's that going to work?
When you're being arrested in the United Kingdom for tweeting, physically arrested, this can only go on for so long. When you are arresting the leading candidate in the nation of France who could walk into the presidency, this can't go on much longer. When you are arresting the president-elect of Romania, this cannot go on much longer. I could talk slower, but it's not going to make the thing go away. The situation here in the United States... No. The situation here in the United States with this Carmelo Anthony case that you now see, that could be the powder keg that ignites a George Floyd situation again. So, I mean, I could go around every country and point it out, but I think what you're going to get into, and I'm not the only one saying this, there are quite a few smart, erudite UK professors talking about this. The situation is going to be like a Northern Ireland situation with sectarian violence for many years. It started by some sort of UK, Ireland, here, Romania, France. It's going to be around the world. because they are not stopping. The repression is not stopping. And, look, until it does, if you're doing what Mike Benz talked about in the USAID files that he uncovered, it's something called transitional justice, is the phrase used by the deep state to lock up your opponents, Drew. That's what's happening in Romania. That's what's happening in France. That's what's happening in countries around the world. And that's what happened here with Donald Trump on a number of occasions.
So you're imagining, you're predicting a world where there's sort of like a domestic terrorism that you're talking about, right?
I'm talking, the closest thing I could think of is Northern Ireland back in the day. It was off and on violence, you know what I mean? That type of civil war, Drew, within its own boundaries. The ethnic stuff with the groomers in UK is reaching ahead with Starmer denying that this is going on while these kids are being sexually abused in the UK. This is not able to be sustained long term before groups of people begin to snap.
So again, I want to make sure I hear you. So you're saying the repressors that you're talking about are going to be faced with some violent pushback.
Yeah.
And that violent pushback is going to create another counter violence of some type.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
What do we, I guess if that's inevitable, what do we need to do to prepare for it? What should the average person do?
I don't know what the spark plug is going to be or what the igniting fuse incident is going to be. That's unpredictable. Nobody predicted George Floyd. This illegal immigration and changing of cultures around the world is only sustainable for a certain amount of time. The elections don't seem to work for these people. They ambush their candidates now for the elections. So look, we may be past the tipping point in terms of world civil wars going on in numerous countries.
And when you say these people, how do you characterize the repressors?
Globalists, one earthers, World Economic Forum. We see the repression in Canada. We see the brutal repression in Australia, in UK, in France. You and I growing up, if we were to talk about this in the 1970s, we would be laughed out of the classroom. And yet today, again, people being arrested for tweeting improper things. In the UK, there's video after video after video of them arresting Tommy Robinson types or just regular people. I was looking at 2 or 3 new videos this morning on X of UK police, London police picking up people for improperly using social media. This is not sustainable, Drew. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What I can't get over is that in my liberal heritage, one of the things I clung to with the greatest passion and one of my, I guess, I don't have a good word for it right now, but it was, the Bill of Rights. And I found that was a liberal thing. I was getting shit from the right always, all through my radio career. And I was a strong advocate for what I thought were these liberal values. We're now these people who are telling me to shut up during COVID and other things. And that shift, I can't get over it. And I saw it kind of happen. It became this sort of repressing rights.
Well, they don't have a Bill of Rights over there. Canada does not have a First Amendment. UK does not have a Second Amendment. We are, in a lot of ways, bulletproof, and we've had our system tested to the max the last 5 years and have somehow come through it. The European Union, which is unelected officials operating out of a central government in Brussels, I'm calling it the Soviet European Union. They have similarities, ethnic states, one world view, 5-year agriculture plans. They can stop elections in any of their members' countries. They have a central bank. The similarities to the USSR and the EU, and I'm just giving you a couple, there's about 50. You could go down the line. They are the new USSR, which is, called the EU, but I'm calling it the Soviet European Union because that's what they've become.
Yeah, it's interesting I do a lot of listening to the French, listen to French radio and things and what's going on over there. And just this morning, they were saying that the economic situation is completely unsustainable in France. And they were blaming it on one of the things they were hanging it on was local Green Party cities, Green parties that have taken over major cities. And what they said in this interview was, this is not the Green Party. This is the Green Party, but it's Marxism cloaked in the Green Party. And that's really what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, when you're locking up your opponents in elections, it's not a coincidence that it's happening in country after country after country after country. Look at Bolsonaro in Brazil. Look at the president in Romania. Look at what's going on with Marie Le Pen. This is an offensive strategy by the globalists who now have their backs to the wall. The elections is not a sustainable thing they can control any longer. They're now resorting to lawfare, as we saw here and we continue to see in our new type of government, which is called a critocracy. We now live in a total critocracy, and you can go back to the Old Testament to find out what that means. We have a society run by judges. Unelected judges who now decide the foreign policy of the United States, the domestic policy of the United States, and continue to interrupt the chief executive of the United States, who had 75 million people vote for him. This is called a critocracy. There's no way around it. You have to deal with this in some legal manner or quasi-legal manner. Otherwise, this whole democracy thing is a sham, Drew.
Well, I still have faith, Mark, that some functioning of them, and we have the brilliance of our state system too, that I think is our buffer against a lot of the things that other countries face that we will not. But that I still have some faith that the ballot box will be our salvation before too much of what you're predicting breaks out. So I want to transition over to RFK. Now, you've been deep in all that world. Explain to people why you're the right person to talk about this.
Well, in terms of just the JFK files, I mean, I have been studying this, for 50 years. I've written about it. I've written a miniseries with Oliver Stone on Lee Harvey Oswald. I've written a script on LBJ with Oliver Stone. So I've worked in the film business trying to get these projects made. I have a channel called America's Untold Stories, where we've done about 200 videos on the JFK conspiracy. So I am quite well versed in this. Recently, what Drew is talking about here is Tulsi Gabbard coming out and finally releasing not the JFK files. The JFK files we've been studying since the 1992 Assassination Record Review Board law was put into effect following JFK the movie, which became the JFK Records Act, which led to the Assassination Records Review Board, which led to the first releases and declassification of the JFK files. So that's been going on since 1992. There were some files still remaining that Trump has now released, and people are going through them now, unredacted files, mostly about foreign governments and intelligence operations and Mexico City and Australia and things of that nature. But there's never been anything on the RFK front. And the RFK files, along with the MLK files, reside in the Justice Department. And in that Justice Department are files, and I don't know what they are, because we almost got the case reopened in terms of the RFK assassination. People now understand, as RFK Jr. does, both of us were involved, myself and RFK Jr., in the last parole hearing of Sirhan, who's the oldest inmate in the California penal system. He has been proven repeatedly through science, through Thomas Noguchi's quote-unquote perfect autopsy and the examination of Thane Eugene Caesar, Sirhan has been, in many people's minds, absolved of killing RFK. And RFK Jr. particularly knows this. He's met with Sirhan, and as I said, both of us were involved in his parole. We got him paroled, and Newsom got some calls from the two sisters of RFK who felt threatened that a 78-year-old man who was about 5'2" would somehow take an Uber from Pasadena to Malibu and kill them. Their words, not mine. And he put the kibosh on his own parole board's recommendation to release Sirhan. That's what RFK Jr. and I had done. And we both have examined this case very closely. And it seems apparent to anybody, and this is far simpler than the JFK case. The RFK case is as simple as apple pie, because the ballistics of the case have a gun in back of RFK's head, either touching the back of his head by his ear, his right ear, and also the stippling and gunpowder residue. The ballistics report and the coroner's report, again, Thomas Noguchi's almost perfect autopsy, with every single coroner of the military world with him during that autopsy, proves that he was shot from behind by close range, and the only one there was a security guard named Thane Eugene Caesar.
So let me talk about Noguchi for a second, because I met him once. That dude botched so many autopsies. I wanted to do a series just called Botched Autopsies based on his celebrity autopsies. Every one was a joke. So I was looking at Natalie Wood's autopsy. Right? Have you ever seen the report on that?
I have not. I assume she drowned somehow.
She drowned, but it's amazing she was breathing before she went in the water when you read her medication list. It's unbelievable, the amount of barbs and benzos and opiates. I was like, oh my God, no wonder she drowned. She couldn't breathe when she was standing on the deck. And no comment about any of that in the autopsy.
Well, in this particular autopsy, he said out loud he did not want this to be another Bethesda Naval Hospital autopsy of JFK. So he brought in a representative of each military branch, Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy, were all there at the autopsy, Drew, to oversee it. So this was a pretty well documented autopsy in terms of Noguchi's life. And again,
I'm going to tell you another story about him. I actually met him. I was in a documentary with him about John. My gosh, the comedian from Saturday Night Live that died of an opiate addiction.
He did Belushi's autopsy too. Yeah,
Belushi. He did Belushi's autopsy, and we were sitting in this waiting room together. And I go, "Yeah, addiction is tough. You know, this disease it'll kill people." He goes, "He's not a drug addict." I go, "What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh no, some girl just injected him with a hot shot. He was just experimenting with drugs. This girl, maybe it's not a murder, but it just, they were just doing drugs together, and that day it took a little too much." Like, what are you talking about? I can't believe you do autopsies in the county.
He can't prove as a coroner whether a guy's an addict unless he's got needle marks up and down his arms, right, Drew?
The point is, he had zero, and when I say zero, I mean zero understanding of what addiction is. Forget whether somebody is or is not an addict.
You said that about most of your medical colleagues,
first of all,
right?
How dare you? How dare you, Mark Groubert? But the answer is, I have grave concerns about the level of understanding of the complexity of this thing we call addiction, even by people who claim to be addiction experts. It's you have to spend decades of your career interacting with multiple disciplines with this disease to have a passing understanding of it, frankly. But most people understand maybe neurobiology.
What's your simple definition of addiction? A repetitive behavior that makes your life unmanageable, that you want to stop and you can't. I think that would be a good street level explanation, right, Joe?
You left out two things. Progression. It always progresses. And this is the part that nobody talks about anymore. And then there's always some degree of denial. Denial is how it
Okay, well,
operates.
those aside, I would say those are 4 and 5 on the list of the top 3.
Well,
but,
they are 4 and 5, but they are defining. They're actually defining.
Okay.
If you don't have
Okay,
those two things, you have to go. Maybe this is an addiction. We have to look. Be carefully. So,
Well,
that's
not
just one of those
everyone's in
things.
denial. Some people simply don't want to hide.
Well,
Repeatedly and couldn't stop or didn't stop.
yeah. Well,
Denial.
we're
Denial
getting into the.
It might get an asterisk.
We're getting into the weeds because how could anybody continue to destroy themselves if they had full clarity on what was happening, whether it's lying or distorting or minimizing or whatever it is? That's all denial. That's all some level. Denial is a very broad category.
Getting back to these files, I'm much more excited about the RFK and the MLK files because these have never been released. I don't know what's in there. I'm very excited now. We here trying to, myself and Paul Schrade and other people, Paul Schrade was shot in the head. The first person shot by Sirhan inside the pantry at the Ambassador Hotel here in Los Angeles. The first bullet went into the front of the head of Paul Schrade of the United Auto Workers, a close friend of the Kennedy family. Paul Schrade worked continuously to get the case reopened, and we almost got it reopened, and the Attorney General of the state of California denied at the last minute to reopen the case, and her name was Kamala Harris.
This gets deeper and deeper all the time.
Yeah, it goes deep into California politics because many of the people originally involved in the case have now been promoted up the ladder. Many are Supreme Court justices, attorney generals, DAs, have all moved up the ladder since the original trials.
Is it just avoiding embarrassment, or is it hubris that has them sort of manifesting such certitude?
Well, they looked at it as an open and shut case. I mean, keep in mind the two top LAPD officers involved in the case, Manny Shoot-'em-up Pena, who was a lieutenant at the time, and Hank Hernandez, who was a sergeant, were both trained at Camp Peary by the CIA. That has come out in documents. So these were the two top intelligence officers, part of an organization that was called Senator. SUS, it was called Senator and Up Investigation about the senator. And those two guys who were running the investigation were both CIA trained operatives, both in Camp Peary, by the way, in Virginia. So they were the ones who were stovepiping the investigation from day one. Police force as an intelligence unit with connections to the intelligence, national intelligence agencies. But yeah, I mean, this case, they pinned it on Sirhan, literally had an article in his pocket saying, I did it, essentially. It was an article about RFK saying he was going to give jets to Israel when he was elected president. And also at the college here, which is now in North Hollywood, I forget the name of the college. It was Valley College back in the day. He spoke there during his campaign in March of 1968, and he said, only the powers of the presidency will allow me to reopen the case against my brother's murder. And he was dead within 60 days of saying that. He had never said that before, and that might have been his death warrant by saying that.
Is that Pierce in North Hollywood? But what do you think we're going to learn about MLK?
Well, the MLK case is kind of interesting because a judge back in the day sealed the audio tapes of Martin Luther King having sex in the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. It was wiretapped by the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, and the judge, for reasons that were other than to save the family embarrassment, sealed the audio tapes that Hoover had wiretapped to get these recordings. And if you read Ralph Abernathy's autobiography, he talks about that he was there and they were having orgies there, and him and Martin Luther King had a bunch of different women up there, and that was recorded on these tapes. I think that's been pretty well established. The fact of the matter is, though, that the authorization for the wiretaps was quite legal and signed by the Attorney General of the United States. And on that document, you will see the name Robert Francis Kennedy as Attorney General of the United States wiretapping Martin Luther King. And that's been pretty well established.
I always wonder what happens to the women in these situations where you make claims like, "Oh, JFK is having, an orgy with whatever," or "MLK is having an orgy."
Depends who it is.
But why do we never have a woman that steps forward and goes, "Yep, I was there"? And
well, there's some in the JFK. Now. There's some in the JFK world who have. I don't want to name their names, but some of them have in the JFK. Right. I mean, there's a couple.
There was the one that was in the pool before the press pool was when the press pool was actually a pool. She was ordered to do
LBJ
something.
Famously, had sex. He had 8 secretaries there. I think he had sex with all 8 of them. So it depends who they are and their fear of reprisal, Drew.
Still fearing reprisal all these years later.
Oh, I don't know about today, but I'm saying while they were alive, I think they feared reprisal.
Oh, everybody's dead. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, they're all dead. Right. They're all dead.
Yeah. All right. So it's all. I just worry what it's going to do. What kind of hornet's nest is going to stir up. Why are there 100 people working around the clock? What are they doing?
Well, they're scanning.
It's
just no, they're just scanning. It's just the physics of scanning. That's you have these documents, you take them and scan them. It takes a lot of people, takes a lot of hours to pull that off, and that's apparently what Tulsi is referring to.
Who's going to present them to us? Is she going to be the one, do you think?
That's a good question, because they have a system for the JFK archives, and that's using the National Archives website, which is where you can find all of the files for the JFK case. I don't think that these are going to go onto that website. Traditionally with the JFK case, they have an archivist who physically puts them in folders and physically puts them on the website. Trump fired the archivist, and there needs to be a new archivist confirmed by the United States Senate. It's a confirmation position, by the way. Yet somehow he was able to get out the JFK documents on the National Archives website. I think they may put them on there as well because as a lack of another better place to put them.
So I want to switch gears back to where we started this conversation about where we're going and what the world is in for. When I listened to Mike Benz and his, let's call it unraveling of all the intelligence, I don't know how to even describe it. It gets confusing to me, is my point. And I always think to myself, Mike Benz was hired by the Obama administration to make sense of all this shit that he's presenting now to us, because that administration couldn't understand what was going on with the intelligence community and was worried that it had become adulterated. Now, here we have all this information that guys like Mike Benz are putting out there. And personally, I'm just as confused as ever. Are they just running? Is it a hydra? It's just going.
Well,
it can't be sort of. It's just what is going on there?
To simplify it, what Benz has uncovered is a system of phony NGOs and a system to funnel money from USAID affiliated with the State Department to pet causes around the world. The pet causes themselves are phony. In other words, all of this hoopla and laughability about funding transhuman mice in Bulgaria or gay rodeos in Lithuania. Those were all covers. What they were using money for was to buy elections and to alter the politics of these particular countries. That's what Benz has uncovered. The money was enormous. It was taxpayer dollars, out of the realm of Congress allocating this, out of the realm of the State Department, a complete rogue government running the world. This is the machinery of empire. This is how the sausage was actually made. As to what he's uncovered is us looking at the sausage of how an empire controls countries around the world, Drew, to simplify it.
But does that stop now? Have they cut the heads off the Hydra?
This has stopped right now because they have cut the heads off of this beast. So, that's why you're seeing such chaos in the EU. That's why you're seeing such chaos around the world, because the source of the money is now gone. They have cut off the money.
Is that contributing to your predictions about unrest and little outbursts of?
They can't. In other words, these weren't ideological things. They didn't support us in Bulgaria because they like us. They supported us because we paid them. And once that money dries up, which it now has, you're going to see sectarian violence within those countries and a fight within the countries themselves for power.
It sounds like you're saying that these NGOs served a purpose.
Well, Benz says that too. Benz is, in his own explanation, said he's not opposed to the American empire. He's just opposed to the way it's run. This secret funding of NGOs is not very democratic, Drew.
Mm-hmm. So he feels that if we were going to get this going again, it would have to be under congressional supervision or allocation.
I think that's generally speaking his take on it. Yeah, because he's not opposed to the American empire. He says that repeatedly. So
we are living these. Did you? I remember back when you came on my podcast about 15 years ago, and you were alerting me to. I think you were calling it Marxist trends. And I was like, what are you talking about? Then that became obvious in terms of, some of the techniques that were being used. And now who could have predicted this? Caleb is asking, do you think 4chan going offline is connected to Trump's USAID cuts?
Well, I'll put it this way: the head of Reddit was the one of the heads of USAID. So, I mean, she literally worked for both organizations, and you're going to see these phony organizations disappear. Now, famously, people like Moby, people like Rob Reiner, social media. People had their social media accounts. They gave them over to the CIA to run them as part of an anti-Trump warfare psyop, and Moby admitted it out loud that he turned over his accounts to them. Rob Reiner, who went to rehab recently because his mind was blown so badly by Trump, his entire social media account has been deleted, Drew. These were psyops run by the CIA who asked them, can we take over your social media accounts? And many of these celebrities agreed to it. That's all gone now. Whether they did it for money or for ideology is another question. These things are drying up all around the American empire now.
I would love to see some documentation of Rob Reiner's having been controlled by CIA, because he seemed like a true believer. It'd be really interesting. Some of the things he did say didn't make sense. So I wonder where that was coming from.
Right. Thank you. I mean, read what he wrote about Trump. It doesn't sound anything like the man that we know. If you go through his Twitter feed and read these statements, they're not Rob Reiner. Go through Moby's. They're not Moby. There's dozens of other celebrities who did the same thing. And probably, based on their Trump derangement syndrome, which is now Musk derangement syndrome. It's now branched off into another derangement. But that's part of the NGO and part of the USAID.
Yeah, the Musk derangement syndrome, I find one of the more disturbing DSs in that he has done so much good. I mean, if you read his biography, you got a really sense of who this guy is and how much he's contributed and how much he could contribute.
Well, look, I mean, think about where the hatred goes the most. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., right? Donald Trump, Elon Musk. Why are these people singled out? Joe Rogan. They're apostates who left the church. No one is hated more than apostates who leave a cult. The reason that Dick Cheney and his daughter and Bush are untouchable by the Marxist left is because they've stayed in their own lane. They're targeting people who left their cult, including Donald Trump. They're apostates, Drew. That's what the rage is about. Look who leaves Scientology. Look who left People's Temple, Jim Jones. Look at every cult. The ones that are targeted are the apostates. That's who these ex-Democrats are. The hatred is directed towards them the most. Not Dick Cheney, a war criminal, not his daughter, some corrupt psychopath. They're okay with them. Obama and George Bush Jr. go horseback riding together. There's no beef with them. But the apostates, Drew, that's a crime that's not forgivable.
Well, and I, as a low-level apostate myself, I would say it's not so much. It's not so much as apostate. It's like the organizations are shifting so much that I can't call myself anything really,
right.
except
well, they're
maybe
still
independent or maybe sort of libertarian or something.
Yeah, they're still hanging on to the church and the sacraments of that church, being the Democratic Party and the DNC. I mean, who would have thought that the, what's her name, Lou, the Asian woman who was the chief fundraiser for the Democratic Party, has shifted over now to the, you're right. I mean, look at the people who have left. These are not low rank and file people. Tulsi Gabbard was the co-chairwoman of the DNC, for Christ's sakes. These are huge shifts in political, people.
Well, Mark, I appreciate you spending a little time with us. I appreciate your thoughts on the RFK and the JFK situation. People have a lot of interest in that, and I am very much like Joe Rogan right now when he expressed during his recent Netflix special that I used to think certain things were just so. I thought the JFK thing was clear. You're paranoid if you think otherwise. I thought vaccines were the greatest advancement in the history of medicine. Now, I think the Earth could be flat. I have no idea. Anything's possible.
I'll just say this. Watch the autism numbers topple when they remove fluoride from the water.
You think it's the fluoride? God, that would be crazy.
It's very easy
been around
metric.
A long time.
The easiest metric to measure, because states that have not had fluoride in their water have the lowest autism rates in the country. Easiest metric to measure medically for Robert Kennedy Jr.
And to be fair, there may end up being multiple influences, right? They might uncover a few things that contribute to this. And people go, it's a genetic thing. Yeah, could be a genetic thing too that underlies it. And there's many ways to understand this. But the fact that we haven't asked the questions, that's scandalous. It's disgusting. It's scandalous. So that this thing has become so prevalent, and we just go, no, nothing to see here. How dare you attack somebody non-neuronormative? How dare you?
What is it, 1 out of 20 now?
You're attacking non-neuronormatives.
What's the ratio?
It's down to 1 in 12 in California. It's 1 in 12 in California.
We're ahead of the curve because it's California. We're always number one in those areas.
Things to be ashamed of. All right, my friend, good to see you, and we no doubt will talk soon.
All right, Drew, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you.
You got it. Oh, wait, look for Mark on X at Lord Buckley,
LordBuckley, and tomorrow, America's Untold Stories on YouTube, Rumble, and Locals for the news tomorrow and
What's
JFK stuff. Tomorrow's going to be the JFK files and the RFK files tomorrow.
All right, it's coming soon.
Yeah, it's coming.
Keep an eye on Mark's. He'll be in deep on it, no doubt. So follow him. All right, thank you so much. Chris Moritz is up next with us. You got it, my friend. Corporate attorney, investment researcher, M&A executive, author of a book called Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire. He's been in Santa Monica for multiple generations. It says third generation. I didn't know people have been living in Santa Monica that long. He's got a Master of Philosophy from Cambridge, earned a JD from NYU, served as a senior advisor at the U.S. Department of Commerce under the first Trump presidency. While you can follow Mark at Lord Buckley on X, it is Chris Moritz, Moritz, and I keep pronouncing his name different ways. I'll have to straighten that out. Let me see if there's anything else No, we'll talk with Chris about his book right after this.
The Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine, available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/CWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid, it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15.
I ain't Dr. Drew.
Dr. Drew. You want to spend the whole session talking about Dr. Drew?
There you go. Even you call him Dr. Drew.
All right. Of course, I've been worried about seed oils. I'm trying to eat healthy. I love great olive oil, and I mean fresh olive oil. Olive oil packs the most flavor and healthiest nutrients when it's fresh from the farm. And that's the problem of supermarket olive oils. They are not fresh. They can sit on the shelf for many months, grow stale. That's why I get olive oil direct from small award-winning farms, thanks to a fellow named TJ Robinson, also known as the olive oil hunter. When I tasted TJ Farms fresh oils, I was in love with it. Grassy, vibrant. They are incredibly delicious on salad, veggies, pasta, meat, whatever, you name it. And as an introduction to his Fresh Pressed Olive Oil Club, TJ will send you a full-size $39 bottle of one of the world's finest artisan olive oils, fresh from his new harvest, for just $1. That just helps him cover the shipping. No commitment to buy anything now or ever. Get your free $39 bottle for just $1 shipping. You should have olive oil on hand. It's no seed oils, everybody. Seed oil are the enemy. Olive oil on hand. Olive oil, butter, all good. Go to Get Fresh Dr. Drew. So it's getfreshdrew.com. Getfreshdrdrew.com. For that free bottle, you'll pay just $1. Get Fresh Dr. Drew. It's all one word, .com. Get that free olive oil and get rid of the seed oils in your life. God, it's so hard. The seed oil thing, if you don't read labels, you will be shocked when you start reading labels how much seed oil is in everything, especially salad dressings. I've just gone now to oil and vinegar for me, and olive oil preferably. So there you go. All right, Chris Moritz is here. As I said, he's a corporate attorney, M&A, executive research, investment researcher, got multiple degrees we'll talk about in a second. What's up?
He's coming back in, so we'll be back in just a minute.
Okay. And do you pronounce the name Moritz, or there's different ways to pronounce that last name? I want to make sure I get it right.
Yeah, let me double check.
Okay, wait a minute. All right, so it's so interesting to listen to Mark Groubert. I don't get a chance to talk to him in detail very often, but he thinks differently than I do. So I'm always intrigued in seeing what's on his plate and what he's thinking. And he, like I said at the introduction, he has been remarkably prescient in his thinking, and even in things where I thought he was, come on, too much. And I had to apologize to him, as I do to many people these days. I am looking at the Restream, at the Rumble Rant, seeing what's going on with you guys. Janice, you're late to the party. Sorry. Hormone. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back up while we're waiting for my next guest to see what's going on. Let's see here. Okay, you guys are active today. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's not a theme evolving here, but a lot of opinions about things.
Should toss it out there that this is not the guest's fault. We had told him that to be here 3 minutes from now, and then we went to break a little early. So we gave him wrong info. He was on time.
My fault. My fault.
He's coming in right now.
It's all good. You tell me when he's ready. Okay. It'll be interesting to see what the RFK files, though, and the MLK files provide, though. History is written in strange ways, and the more information we get about history, the more able we are to understand the human experience. And so I am in favor of taking unblemished look at things. And most of history is sort of myth meets PR. I got interested in reading biographies and history back about 20 years ago, where I was just looking at a penny and just going, who is this guy on the penny? I don't know anything about this human. I was working in a psychiatric hospital then. I had some understanding that humans were pretty complex. And I started reading biographies, and I thought, oh man, very different than the myth. And when you really think about myth generally, myths are just things designed to dumb down is not the right word, simplify a story so you can present it to a child. That's really what I think myth is about. And also to perhaps gloss memory with the way we'd like to remember it rather than the harsh reality of what it actually was. It's simpler to to keep it in a structure that we're a little more comfortable with than the complexities of. I'm reading about the railroad right now and how Chinese were treated and how Indians were treated. It's complicated, and it's not one thing. All right, let's bring Chris Moritz in here. And as I said, corporate attorney, M&A executive. He has a book. It is called, hold on a second, I lost, there it is. Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire. And Mark, you're quoted recently as having said, the unraveling of California is a case study in the perils of unchecked oligarchy. Concentrated wealth, political corruption, and mass migration are weaponized to dissolve national cohesion. Is that what California is all about?
Look, there's so many sort of fault lines in the decay of California that's happened, I would say, over a course of 25 years. It's accelerated significantly in the last 5. But I think when we ultimately try and dissect what has happened here, you have to ask yourself the question, why? And what is the political economy? And the political economy of California is one that is increasingly stratified. It's stratified by design. It is stratified significantly because of the influx of immigrants into the country, into the state, both illegal and not, but significantly amongst low skill, obviously low wage illegal immigrants. California is 27% foreign born today. Since 1990, that has grown 60%. And as the state has become more foreign, more dominated by immigrants, the Democratic Party has become more and more entrenched, right? So California was not a blue colossus. I would argue even till 2000. But this has been an accelerating trend. It's not something that has happened by accident. It has happened for the explicit purpose of achieving political hegemony amongst the Democratic Party. Now, I argue in my book that the Biden administration attempted to implement the exact same strategy with their immigration policies that we, all witnessed to such great horror. Fortunately, that was curtailed by the election. But in California, there has been no pause, right? The consolidation of power, the amplification and ascendancy of figures like Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris, who words that is only continuing. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be, an off ramp. So, it's a complicated question.
Let me stop you with that. I want to stop you with that, the off ramp idea. So I think the case you're making is that the Democrats have gone after this certain population in order to ensconce their elite status, right? Democrats certain right, but why don't the people who identify with the Democratic Party become frustrated? I mean, look at the people in Pacific Palisades. When all of a sudden they're like, we elected these people. What the hell's going on here? They suddenly wake up.
Yeah. And hopefully that is actually what will happen. I mean, the fact is, look, Dr. Drew, you live here. You, I'm sure, understand the zeitgeist of this state like I do. And everyone is talking about crime all the time. We've all been affected by it. We all see it. And sometimes, and in many cases, we've been victimized by it. So I actually wrote this book because of a victimization that I experienced in 2023 when my home in Santa Monica was effectively home invaded 2 nights in a row on one weekend by an MS-13 gang member, convicted felon. It served 7 years in state prison for gun crimes. And he was immediately deported after his prison sentence by the Trump administration in the first term. And then he came back into the country under Biden. And once he was back in California, he had a kid. So, that's a U.S. citizen. And then he went on a rampage across LA County and into Ventura County. And he committed dozens of these types of crimes all over the place. Now, in LA County, especially under the tenure of the former DA, George Cascone, property crimes were simply not prosecuted. So police officers had no incentive to make a case on a property crime. Right. Even one where there's a violent element. And this guy was a violent gangster. Okay. When he was arrested by the police up north in Ventura, he had a stolen loaded gun on him, body armor, knives. And actually in his interrogation, the cops said to him, like, thanks for not opening fire on us at the arrest. So we know you had a gun on you. He said, don't thank me, because if my wife and kid had not been in the back seat of the car, it was a stoplight arrest. He said, I was totally planning on opening fire and murdering you because I'm not going back to jail. This guy was ultimately only sentenced for 2 counts of these types of crimes in Ventura County, which takes property crime and crime in general a little bit more seriously, but not a lot. He ended up getting a 2-year sentence, which he'll serve, I'm sure, much less than that, probably 1.5 years, and a $300 fine. Now, if you or I don't pay our taxes, we're going to go to jail for a lot longer than 2 years. Yep. So what has happened that our justice system has now prioritized the rights of criminals above victims, of course, but society in general. And when I learned all these facts and was trying to understand just as a citizen of California, how this could have happened, I began an investigation. And one of the prosecutors I talked to in my initial research, who's a veteran deputy DA, I told her my story, and she said, well, what's so remarkable about your story is how relatable it is. And I was kind of taken aback by that, because how could it be relatable that an MS-13 gang member could home invade your house while you're asleep 2 nights in a row, and he's an illegal alien, a dreamer, by the way. And he gets a 2-year sentence and is going to be out in less than that. And that's now become relatable and the standard of justice in California. When that happens, what I determined ultimately, and this was substantiated by significant research into plenty of other examples of this types of occurrence, is that in California, the state has effectively surrendered on its fundamental duty to protect citizens. That's the number one job of government. In fact, it's the entire basis of what we call the social contract, right? The idea that you surrender, pay taxes, right? Surrender liberties, autonomy in exchange for protection by the government, which is supposed to have a monopoly on violence. And at the very least, there has to be an assurance of justice. That is gone in California. So in my opinion, the government of California really does not have any legitimacy, and certainly Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, having been here for a while. And also, they're also negligent murderers. All the people dying on the street in California are directly the result of the people that run our state. They kill due to negligent manslaughter 6 people a day, just in LA County. They are an active, negligent participant. These are people that are easily treatable, could be made well. Just allow us to do it, and they could be helped, but you're not allowed to. And the denial and anosognosia of addiction is privileged in the law, and so the brain disorders are allowed to kill these people, and I call that negligent homicide. That's what that is.
You know, that it's really interesting you should phrase it that way, Dr. Drew, because in my book, I actually have an entire chapter dedicated to the legislative history of what I believe is really the core of our problems. And I call it statutory negligence. And the idea is that the laws put in place by the legislature, but also through ballot initiatives, are so reckless, so foreseeably dangerous, that they rise to a level of gross negligence or criminal negligence, which if it was an individual committing that kind of tort, they would face criminal liability.
Absolutely. If a doctor, as a physician or as a lawyer, if you engaged in that kind of negligence that resulted in 6 people dying a day, or if I ran a hospital that 6 people died, it's just like, it's unthinkable what would happen to people who were responsible, whose hands weren't clean as it pertains to the execution of these ills. It's ridiculous. But I want to put a little philosophical spin on it, or at least historical spin, if I can. Is that, I don't know how to frame this. I always wondered why the French bring up 1789, within the first 5 minutes of every conversation. And I talked to finally a politician in France a couple of days ago who said, 1780, that's the people on the left. People on the left believe that history began with the Jacobins in 1789. And what were the Jacobins but a grievance group, a grievance culture? And what was the first thing they did? Let out the criminals, storm the Bastille. And so that not only is that sort of the model for this, it tells us psychologically what people in a grievance environment are likely to do, which is they're likely to, who is more aggrieved than a criminal in prison? That's the most aggrieved. And if you're going to put it to the man, what are you going to do? Let them out. Let them go. Yeah. They're fine. They're just like you and me. And by the way, in California, we have a problem where we put too many people in jail for a long time with stupid-ass drug charges who also shouldn't actually have been there. That's actually true. We did that. But now we've gone completely the other direction.
You know, it's really interesting you should bring up 1789. So I call my book A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire. And that has several different connotations. One, of course, is that California is, the 5th biggest economy in the world, almost a country unto itself. I would say an empire, and it is in its twilight. When I wrote the book, this was before the election, and it did seem that America was in a twilight of empire. But beyond that, I wanted to frame the destruction of our state against the sort of end of empire phenomenon across many different civilizations and societies. And with respect to the French Revolution, I've actually termed this phrase, you call it grievance or retribution. It's a kind of retributive justice. I call this crime equity. And I think it's at the fundamental heart of the so-called criminal justice reforms that have turned our state into a war zone in many parts. And the idea of it is that the ultimate ideological motivation for these reforms is not about rehabilitating criminals. It is actually, as a form of equity, about redistributing crime to areas and people that had been historically insulated from it. So I view this very much as an attack on the middle class. And in fact, the evidence, especially speaking to police officers in Los Angeles, is indeed crime has spread from the so-called, dangerous areas to the west side of Los Angeles, to Brentwood, to formerly the Palisades, to these areas that had been off limits. And this is not just because criminals have gotten smarter, not just because there's been changes within the economics of the criminal underworld, which I can talk about, but really because laws have been put in place to unleash criminals. And it is entirely foreseeable that by unleashing criminals and emptying the prisons, they are going to continue to commit crime, because that is the statistical conclusive determination about crime. It's committed over and over again, high recidivism by a small number of people, career criminals, and a lot of the people that we've released, through prison reforms are in fact violent and have violent histories.
How dare you discuss reality or data when in the eyes of the post-structuralists like the Michel Foucaults out there, it's actually the jails and the institutions and the systemic problems in society that cause all this. If you just take care of that, it'll all go away.
Yeah.
They literally think that way.
Yeah.
Do you know that I've got a guy interviewed here who I interviewed on a different program, I think, and he's now off the streets. He was a drug addict on the streets. He's now a carpenter doing great. And he said, the last 2 years I spent on the streets, they gave me my rigs, they gave me my drugs, and patted me on the back and said, "You're just a victim of capitalism. Once we get communism in here, you're going to be fine."
It's funny. People say that California is this sort of like progressive bastion. They're wrong. It's actually as regressive and reactionary as you can possibly imagine. Because the oligarchy, and it kind of ties to the 1789 kind of analogy. And in some ways, I feel it's the bourgeoisie, the middle class that are really under attack by the oligarchy in the state. But in any event, I give a great example about the prisons. So we shut down juvenile correction facilities in past years. As a result, juvenile crime has spiked. And in fact, gangs are recruiting children as young as 10 to be child soldiers, committing hijackings, armed robberies, and even assassinations. There is an example a few years ago of a small-time rapper who was by LAX airport, parked in his car. A 15-year-old gang member approached the vehicle, assassinates him, gets back in the vehicle, getaway vehicle that's driven by his dad. Okay? So what gangs have learned, because they're smart, they understand legal arbitrage, is that if you recruit kids, even if they get arrested over and over and over again, they face no consequences. Gaston refused, as one of his initial directives, to try juveniles as adults, ever. So this is the consequence. It's it's again, like all of these types of policies have a predictable response. And another thing I would say that is just, I think, quite interesting is the influence of the Mexican drug cartels in California is far, far more profound than anyone possibly realizes. And essentially what I have learned through, many, many hours of interviews with cops and prosecutors is that sometime in the late 2000s, the Mexican drug cartels moved into California to essentially execute a hostile takeover of the drug trade, which was primarily dominated by the Bloods and the Crips and legacy black gangs. And the cartels said to these gangs that if we catch you selling dope without sanction, we will cut your head off. And they meant it literally, right? So they brought the Mexican style savagery, which I call sort of pre-Columbian, sort of atavistic savagery, into this state. The legacy black gangs, well, they got the message fast. So they had to find a new vertical of crime to continue their operations. What was the easy target? Residential burglaries. And it just so happened that in the state, we barely take them seriously. You are more likely to get robbed, burglarized, beaten, or your car stolen in California than in any other state in the country by far, by like double. And
I also have seen evidence that they get into female trafficking of these women on the streets. They're trafficked in prostitution and things. But listen, I got to wrap this up. I have one remaining question, is given your insights into the excesses of California, how do you survive in the People's Republic of Santa Monica?
Look, I'm a third generation Santa Monican. My house is my castle.
How is it possible that 3 generations lived in Santa Monica? That's the other thing that got my attention. Like, were they in the oil business? It was part of
my grandfather was, we're from like Liverpool originally. There's a lot of English in Santa Monica. And Santa Monica was a great place up until, the communists took over. Like it's Stephen Miller, one of my best friends, okay? He's also from Santa Monica. There's a lot of great folks from Santa Monica and Southern California, but, we're surviving. And again, my home is my castle. I'm not giving it up. And I love my state. I love California.
Well, I have mixed feelings about California, but I did one day about 5-6 years ago decide it was worth fighting for. I do feel intermittently that it's like hopeless, but I still feel that there's a good fight to be fought, and so here I still am. Chris, we appreciate you being here. Can they buy the book at the usual places?
Yes, sir. Amazon.
Put it up there again. Yeah.
And on my
Caleb, put the book up. There it is.
Yeah.
Failed State. There it is. You want to read about what it's like to live here and what mess we've created? There it is. So far, it hasn't happened to the country, but somebody seemed to want it to go that way. You can follow Chris on Chris Moritz, Chris G. Moritz. I got that wrong on X, Chris G. Moritz. And I hope to talk to you again soon sometime.
Thanks, Dr. Drew. Appreciate it.
You got it. Cheers. All right, let's see what's coming up for us. This is Thursday, so I'm going to be traveling next week. So I guess what we're talking about is on the 24th. Joe Dombrowski, Elijah Schaefer. These are from Florida. Elijah, Dana Lush. I saw her on something yesterday. Jenny McCarthy on the 15th. So we're traveling a bunch in May. In fact, including leaving the country for a while. So people will be living in our house. So don't get any ideas. But we will be traveling. We'll be in Florida, and then we'll be out, and then we'll be in New York. So we're going to be all over the place for a while. But that's the schedule coming up. Gary Brecka will be a great guest on the 16th. Dear friend Tim Pool just got added on 522. Look at that May lineup that Emily Barsh has been able to put together. Jenny McCarthy, Gary Brecka, Tim Pool. Stay tuned here. We got much more coming in. Do check out Susan's show also. I don't know if you heard yesterday's show, but I found it quite entertaining and interesting. And you can even listen to the tape, which is up at .drew.com. So, Caleb, anything on your front that we need to highlight, mention?
Nope. Just want to say again how grateful I am for my TWC medical kit because it is saving me right now. I'm so glad I did not have to go into urgent care and spend hours and hours with a headache over there with this. I think I have COVID. I'm pretty convinced it is. So it's all on hand.
Well,
I'm glad.
That's what I was going to say in parting is that COVID is really running rampant right now. And you could miss that you have it. It starts very mild, and then all of a sudden you're fatigued and all the stuff that we all associate with COVID. And I don't think I don't think Paxil or anything like that is appropriate. But you have to give yourself a break. This one kind of hangs on a bit. My voice that you hear is living example of that. Though I feel much better. All right, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Caleb, thank you for the show. And we will see you, let's see, that'll be what date will that be that I'll see people? Is that with Elijah
24th.
on the, possibly on the
with Joe.
23rd, but definitely on the 24th. See you next Thursday. See you then.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.